In today's business world, being an average CEO is no longer an option. That's why we're committed to equipping you with the resources and the tactics necessary to not just survive, but to thrive. You're listening to Not Your Average CEO Lifeline podcast, where we are more than just a voice in the crowd.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. We have William Davis on, and we are really excited to have him and talk about relationships and metrics. So, William, thank you again for being here. Can we start off by you telling our audience about yourself and your journey and where you are currently in your career?
Yeah, thank you, Danielle, for having me on. I just retired May of 2025 after 38 years in corporate America to start my own organization, specifically designed to deal with what I feel like are some leadership challenges that we have, not just in corporate America, but in other areas also, where we are not looking at people as humans. We look at them as metrics, and I think you've talked about this on other shows. So after I made the decision to do that, I've kind of spent the last, I don't know, 7, 8 months trying to organize my company to a position of what do I really want to offer, keynote speaking, workshops, and so forth. So that's where I've come to. I've written a couple of books on leadership, and then I actually just launched yesterday my first mystery. So I just had some fun with that. So I'm enjoying retirement, quote unquote
Yes.
retirement. Yes.
Busy in retirement, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So I know that over the course of all of this um, exciting journey in your career, you've met with lots of leaders. What, in your experience, do leaders misunderstand about what drives performance?
Well, I think the first misunderstanding is the fact that money drives everything. And 38 years in corporate America, yes, money's important to people, but the fact that they feel valuable, that they feel like that they're a part, that they're participating, are able to contribute, that can bring a lot of satisfaction while they're waiting on the money part of the job to come to fruition. And so I think, one of the things that we need to make sure that we're doing with our folks is that we are helping them understand the why of what we do. It's one thing to say, hey, we've got to get this done, and then just say, go do it. But when you allow people to understand the why of what we're doing, what is the end result? What is the, maybe not long-term plan, but a shorter term plan of why we're doing this, they get more creative because they're invested in what you're doing. And I think oftentimes we just say, just do it, right? Just do it. And it comes from the higher ups, just do it. Well, that can work for a short-term period of time, but at some point, people want to feel like that they are a part of what is going on. They're contributing, they're valuable, and they have an investment in what's happening.
Yes, I mean that is very true. Um, so pivoting a little bit, you hear a lot these days about organizations, struggling with retention and being hard to keep good performers. And so when even the pay and the benefits are competitive, why in your experience are so many organizations struggling with that retention, even when all else is equal?
Well, my personal opinion is it's because there's no connection between the leaders and their people. They come in the office and it's like these are the assignments we got to get done. Here's what we need to do. They talk in generalities or specifics about the work, but then at the end of the day, you and I, everybody else, we have real lives, right? We have things that are going on outside the workplace. We have things that are going on outside in our homes, in our families, etc. And all of that determines how I work during the course of the day. If I have pressures, outside of the office, those are going to contribute to how I conduct my business at work. And so what I always tried to do in my career was I tried to get to know my people on an individual basis because when they were having a bad day, then that way I knew how to deal with them, right? How do you help someone who's having Well, let me just give you an example. I had a young lady that came to work for me, and she was a good performer. I wouldn't say she was, the top tier of the folks that I had, but she did her work. She was very personable. She interacted great with the team. But then she started coming in late, and this lasted for a period of time, and it started affecting not just the work that she was doing, but the people that she worked with. And I had to be careful about not showing a favoritism. So I knew her well enough because of the relationship we had built that something else was going on. This wasn't just something she was slacking off or she was just derelict in her duties. So she liked to have coffee every morning. She'd go down and get one and come back up to the office. So I just asked her one day, "Can I go with you?" And she goes, "Sure." And I went and we bought coffee and we just sat down at the table for a second. And I just looked at her and I said, "So tell me what's going on." And immediately the emotions were just all over her. Well, come to find out, she had a mom in hospice. And so obviously that was affecting her
Sure,
on a
and you're,
personal basis, yeah,
yeah,
mentally, and then affecting her job. And I said, you know what? Just let's work together and let's help you deal with all this. So what I did is I said, you work at home or you work where your mom is. Do whatever you need to do to take care of that situation. Because she'd come into the office feeling obligated to be there, and all she could worry about is my mom okay? Is my mom okay? And I tried to take that out of the equation by allowing her to be both, right? Be engaged with what we're doing at the office, but then be right there with her mom to understand if she needed something. And I said, during the course of the day, if you need to bow out and do something for her, just let me know. We'll cover for you. And so it was like the whole aura of her changed because instead of feeling all this pressure of the work and responsibilities and then her mom, she understood, okay, they get me, he gets me, and they're going to help me out. So when we understand our people well enough to understand when something's going on with them or we need to kind of intervene, it's not a boss intervention, it's a human intervention. Hey, just tell me what's
mhm,
going on. Let's see what we can do. Because there's all sorts of solutions, creative solutions you can come up with to help your people. But
mhm.
oftentimes leaders don't go to that step. It's just like, you do the work. If you can't do the work, I'll find somebody else who can. That's not the way we need to be treating our people.
Yeah. And I think that really speaks to that builds trust way faster
Yeah,
than any sort of
absolutely. Yeah,
formal leadership
yeah,
system could,
yeah.
that type of behavior.
Well, because they see
Um,
you're authentic, right? I mean, they see that you're
yeah.
an authentic individual, that you care. And so, that's why I've always preached to my folks, you've got to build genuine relationships. You can't build a fake relationship because that's going to be seen through very quickly. That
Yeah.
genuine relationship is, I care about you. Now, obviously, there's a line you don't cross, right? But I care about you outside of the work that you're doing. And so I'm going to help you not just in this aspect of your life, but also, in other things that affect your work. I'm going to do what I can to provide you relief.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, so if a leader has not been able to do that up until this point, um, and the relationship is strained or even
Mm,
broken,
yeah.
how can they pivot from here? How can they repair that trust and begin to change um, more intentionally?
Yeah, I think you first look internally, be self-aware, right? And the thing I always ask people, why did you want to be a leader? Why did you want to lead people? Because if the answer is money, power, authority, office, whatever, that's the wrong reason. And you're going to fail more often than you're going to succeed. So when I understand that, I wanted to be a leader and making sure I'm doing it for the right reason, helping my people grow, helping my people succeed, uh, then I can put the ego aside and say, okay, guys, what do I need to do to change? Because a lot of times when people are not self-aware, they are avoiding feedback. And when they get feedback, they either get upset about it and mad and so forth, or they just totally ignore it and say, oh, they just don't know what they're talking about. So when you understand why you wanted to be a leader, and it's for your people, right, to help them, then when you're not making that connection, you can go to them and say, guys, what do we need to do? What can I do to change? And just have that open dialogue so that they understand that you're really looking for feedback, you're willing to make modifications, make changes, but then don't be hesitant to, say, hey, all right, I'm going to do this, but I need you guys to do this also. And then try to meet in a middle ground area where you can start forming that relationship.
Mhm. I like that you're saying in the middle ground. I
Yeah.
think that's very important too. Uh, so, what advice would you give to a CEO who's feeling disconnected from their team?
The first thing I've always tried to get people to do is if you have someone close to you, it doesn't have to be in your group, but someone within your organization, or maybe even your wife, spouse, whatever, just go to them and say, here's the scenario. What do you see or what do you think? And just kind of get a maybe a starting point from them of where to build from. Because oftentimes when that's the situation that's occurring, it's hard for you to objectively, look at the situation and say, oh, maybe I need to change, right? Again, going back to that self-awareness. So if you're willing to get an objective opinion on the situation and use that as kind of a baseline to start from, then that helps a great deal. Because if I'm just trying to figure it out on my own, I'm not going to oftentimes look at the most obvious things, which oftentimes happen to be me.
Yeah, I mean that is very true, and I've worked with a lot of CEOs, and I think that's prevalent. Um,
Yeah.
so what's a habit that you see these leaders practice daily that you think a lot of others overlook? What's the one habit?
The one good habit that I see
Good habit, I should say.
great leaders have is that they're connected with their people, not just, on a daily basis, not just one-on-one, not just, weekly meetings or whatever. They get out and see what their folks are doing. Look at facial expressions, look at shoulders, positioning, listen to conversation that's going on, to try to get a hint for, do I, feel good about where we're at and what we're doing, or do we need to take some steps to maybe mitigate something that's going on? Oftentimes, leaders will sit in their office or sit in their cube, and the interaction with their people is only if somebody comes to them, and that's not, that's not effective. Because again, many times people look at you as the leader and you're here and they're here. And if they bring something to you, they're afraid that you're going to look at them as inadequate, not being able to handle the job. Whereas if you're out, walking the floor, working with them, just talking with them, interacting with them, you're more often going to get good feedback that is actionable.
Yeah. Yeah, the actionable, I think
Yeah.
is the key there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Something you can do it with. So as you know, William, the name of our podcast is Not Your Average CEO. So the last question that we always like to ask folks is, what does not your average CEO mean to you?
Oh boy. Not your average CEO to me means that you are focused on your people. The authority is not what creates influence. It's the relationships that do. The first book that I wrote, Danielle, was specifically talking about the differences between bosses, managers, and leaders. The boss attitude is that my authority should be all that I need, right? And you should just do it. Well, military, that works. First responders, that works. But in corporate America, or in just business relationships, that's a very short term work. because people at some point are going to say, forget that. There's more to life than this. So when I think about not your average CEO, they understand that the relationship that I build, and you said this earlier, is going to grow much further to helping me succeed, my team succeed, the work succeed, and people being happy, staying with the company because they feel like they're a part of something. And so, the money's great, benefits are great, but when people feel like they're a part of something bigger, that they can contribute, and that they have a meaningful part to their life, which is at their job, then they are much more productive, think much more outside the box to give you much better solutions, and allows them to flourish. And that's really what being a leader is all about, is my people flourish. They're not my competition. They are the greatest compliment to my career. And I've told people before, some of the greatest things that I take out of my career are where my people that have worked for me in the past are now today. Executives in financial institutions, teachers, managers in corporate organizations. And I'm proud of them, because to me, that was what my responsibility was, is to help them succeed and help them be happy.
I love that. Thank you so much. So,
Thank you.
I said that was the last question, but I do have one more.
Okay.
Where can our audience find you if they want to learn more and continue the conversation?
I have a website. It's called williamcdavis.net, williamcdavis.net. At the bottom of every page has all of my contact information, email, so forth. So you can get a hold of me there. My website talks a lot about the different things I offer, keynotes, workshops, one-on-one type work with companies or individuals. And then, as I mentioned, I've written a couple of books regarding leadership, and you can find them there also.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, William. It was great to be with you, and thanks for all the great insights that you shared.
Appreciate you having me on, Danielle. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Not Your Average CEO Lifeline with your hosts Danielle Cuomo, CEO, and Nicole Glitchio-Els, COO. This podcast has been sponsored by Virtual Assist USA. If you'd like to know more about the hosts or exploring virtual assistant services, visit virtualassistusa.com for more information.